I think my favorite thing in life is Milwaukee Mile qualifying. It is the best portrait session you could have with a driver.
Welcome to the Details Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Williams, Dan E. Williams, and today I have a special guest, Mr. Rich Zimmermann, who is a professional photographer with an epic career both in rock and roll and in motorsports. He's photoed all of the famous rock stars and race car drivers, and I'm so excited to share his story with you. Let's jump in here and say, Rich, how the heck are you doing today?
Hey, buddy, I'm good.
All right. So you've had a really stellar career and have had the opportunity to photograph so many people, and you have your photos in publications. And gosh, when we were talking before we jumped on here, you were at the Milwaukee Mile, the racetrack, and your photos are all over there too. So I'm super excited to jump in. But let's first jump into the Wayback Machine and talk about how you very first dipped your toes into photography. As far as I could find, the first story is when you were 14 at the racetrack. Tell me a little bit about that.
Dad didn't want to go. And I forced him into it and took the Polaroid and just got seats that were like, oh gosh, maybe 10th row. So you're low. Of course, we want to be up high on a racetrack so you can see over the fence. Especially now, you want to be about 20 rows up. Fencing's higher. But it was very cool. Got to photograph 1968 Milwaukee Mile, and it sucked me in. It got me into it a lot. It was my dad's camera, so I borrowed it. And the Polaroid film then was actually a roll. I was in high school. We were given a camera to use in high school. I photographed for the high school newspaper, and we had a great darkroom at Pius the 10th, 11th, excuse me. Catholics would yell at me. But we had a great darkroom there, and I shot for the newspaper doing basketball, this and that, and everything. So junior or freshman, junior, senior year, freshman, sophomore, junior year, I was at Pius doing that. And in between, I photographed the mile and a couple other races, but kind of got out of it. We then moved from Wauwatosa in Wisconsin here to Whitefish Bay on the east side. And that got me into rock and roll. It got me away from Catholic school to public school. No more nuns. But I lost all my friends, and it made me discover rock and roll because everybody on the east side of Milwaukee was really into rock and roll. And I still have great friends from Whitefish Bay High School that are still playing. Some played with Edgar Winter, Johnny Winter, few others. And a couple are in New York now, but they kind of trained me and got me into it. But when we moved, I worked for a newspaper called the Bugle American, which was then like mostly a music newspaper. It went a little political, but it was mostly about music and events happening in town. So I became their music photographer at 17. And during that, I became Columbia Records PR photographer, photographed the Byrds, photographed Loggins and Messina. My favorite story is the Byrds, 1972, my senior year of high school. I'm with a Columbia rep. Go to Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is about 25 miles south of here, for a show. Go to photograph them. Go in and ask for permission like I still do. And Roger McGuinn says, no, sorry, Kid can't do it. And the band is great, but they were kind of at the end of their career in 1972. And their guitar player, Clarence White, had developed a B-bender guitar, which you can get into in a bit. Marty Stewart now plays it, but Clarence White is sitting on a church table in the backstage area and says, Roger, let the guy shoot. So I was able to shoot the show, which was very, very cool because Clarence White died a year later. But that guitar is a Fender Telecaster, but it's like a double body. It's twice as thick. And the reason being it's called the B bender is because it's twice as thick. It has a spring mechanism, and you lean on the guitar strap going down, and it bends the string a note, like kind of like a pedal steel. So Clarence and I got chills, became friends. But Marty Stewart and his fabulous Superlatives band now, Marty Stewart bought that guitar from Clarence's White after he was killed by a drunk driver in 1973. And the guitar lives on, and Marty and I have become friends. But that was one of the coolest rock and roll experiences of my life.
So you're a kid and you're going to see these bands. Like, so did you get butterflies? And as you started thinking in these early rock and roll photos when you're still a teenager, what were you thinking? Were you looking for the shot where they're like, "Wow," or you had to have some kind of an idea in your head of the artistic vision that you had?
Yeah, you definitely had to have an idea in your head, but I think apparently I was born with it. But the Roger McGuinn and the Birds thing, I've always tried to be cordial with every racer, every rocker, give them their space, don't mess with them. Just, I won't really talk to most of them. I'm there to photograph them for a publication, record company, or whatever. So let them do their job. But the Birds thing was like the first one where I said to myself, all right, you got to respect them, ask them politely, like I did, and stuff can happen. Maybe you can photograph them, maybe not. And if you can't, well, then go out, go back to your vehicle, get your camera and a case, and come back in and a long lens and shoot them from the back, which I did a lot.
Yeah. Well, it seems like most of the guys who are stars would kind of want themselves to be photographed, or at least that's what you would think.
Right. Yeah, you would think.
You would think.
Well, they all think you're going to sell this crap photo. Pardon me. And I don't. That's why I worked in a factory for 40 some years to pay for the cameras, did weddings, did commercial work, and all that. But I did it to put in my archives because I enjoyed it and because I got to go up front most of the time, sometimes backstage. But to preserve, it's all about history. You want that history put there. That's why I like photography versus movies. You want the moment, freeze it in history. I photographed Indy cars, and you see them at turn 5 at Road America, and they come in and they're hitting the brakes, and their brakes are on fire and they're glowing. You can see it then, but to see it in a still photograph a day later or whenever later, that's unique. A still photograph is history.
All right. So before we move on from that time of your life, I read that you had a really good teacher in high school. How did that person
No,
kind of really influence you or motivate your career?
he taught me everything, and he passed away 2 years ago. I talked to his son now and then, and I actually sold him a lens a while ago. But he was great, and he did photography for the school Pius High School newspaper, and we had a great darkroom. But he was more of a teacher of telling you yes, no, this is okay, this is not, and he wouldn't give you so much advice. So you had to kind of have it on your own. It was maybe that's a teaching tool also. You got to do it on your own and figure it from there.
Yeah. Now you worked at the camera corner also in high school. So
Ah,
I dig how like everything I find a lot of the people who have been successful at doing what they do, they latched onto something early on and they found a passion for it and they really just kind of pursued that their whole career like you have. So going out and getting your first job in a
yeah.
camera store was neat. So what kind of things did you learn from that? And was that back when you would like drop your photography, your roll of film off too, and they would make all the pictures in an hour for you? Was it to that point yet?
Oh no, it was before that. I worked at Camera Corner, which was a mile away from Channel 6 where my dad worked. And I worked there junior year of high school and then senior year. And by senior year, I was managing it. And we sold film to Channel 6, Channel 12, TV stations. And they still had a, still photographer. So the manager, John Dunar, who was awesome, took me under his wing and helped me a lot. I learned a lot there, maybe almost more than I did at high school. But I learned the product, how to sell the product, what films were, what cameras were, and why I wanted a Nikon. and that was a great experience. But I would close that store. I started there probably beginning of junior high school, finished end of senior year, little bit further, and then I opened my own studio. But when we'd close at 9, I would walk the mile or so to Channel 6 and watch my dad do the 10 o'clock news. He was the newscaster, news anchor. So I learned a lot from both, from going to that thing with my dad doing the 10 o'clock news, seeing what was happening. And again, there was still a film lab there and a TV station doing film. And they used to ship it to Chicago after they did their movie film, and it would be shipped overnight or that day. But I got to see until they started doing it on their own. So I got to see the whole process, loved it. There's nothing like seeing um, a movie or, in my world, a print being developed and happen in front of your eyes in a tray, become apparent. And I still like that. I miss a dark room. Kind of
Yeah.
still smell it too.
All right. Well, you mentioned your studio, Intrepid Trips, and I
Yep.
believe you opened that in 1974. What kind
Right.
of led you to take that leap of faith and have your own studio? I mean, that's you're going from working in the camera store and doing these side gigs to opening your own whole studio. What was that process like?
Well, I went to MATC college here in photography after high school. And my thought was during that, I know a lot. Let's open a studio and try to sell music photography. And racing was nowhere in that. But try to sell music pictures of Neil Young or whomever. Well, that's a tough thing with copyrights and everything. So I had a partner. We got into doing commercial work, weddings, etc. We became a retail store and it lasted 2 years and went bankrupt. But I also learned I should have stayed in college. I went a year and a half for a 2-year photography degree, and I should have stayed in. I would know more about lighting than I do now, and I regret that. So everybody stay in college, go to school.
Well, so what was it that caused you guys to go bankrupt? I mean, it sounds like you guys had the passion for it and you were getting gigs, but where did the wheels come off of that?
It's like me selling a picture of you. Um, Now it's called a copyright, kind of was then, but to sell a picture of the Rolling Stones, it's a problem. And there's a gray area. As I worked for publications, yeah, it's fine, but to sell that photo, not so fine. So it didn't work so well, and off it went.
Gotcha. Okay, so you've photographed a lot of rock and roll stars, and your favorite musician is one of them, Jeff Beck. Can you tell me a little bit about
I've
how you met him and formed a relationship with him over your career?
met him and photographed him in 1972 when I was working for the Bugle American newspaper. Excuse me. And working for the Bugle, I had really good access, and Jeff was very, very nice. I photographed him at Milwaukee's Performing Arts Center, and it was the Jeff Beck group then. And I photographed him, and he's a car guy. So we got along. I was able to get backstage easily back then, and we became friends. Photographed him then and through the years, I was allowed access throughout pretty much every hall that I wanted to go to. And I was very blessed with that. Jeff was just, he was great. He would pinstripe his cars to match his guitars. So he always played a Fender Stratocaster. And literally, the pinstriping on the guitar would match a car he had. And the book I did, Becco 1, with him, you'll see that there's guitars and cars that the striping matches, and it's great. But Jeff was like talking to you. He was normal. He wasn't a blown up rock star like Mick Jagger or somebody who I've met, but Jeff was just really, really cool and passed away a couple of years ago, and deeply miss him. He was great.
You were there in 1972 for George Carlin's um, yeah,
Huh.
famous. So tell me a little bit about that experience because I can only imagine. And how did that kind of shape your view of being a photographer?
I was hired, so 72, senior year of high school. I was hired by Summerfest because I was with the Bugle American newspaper to be their house photographer. Didn't get paid, of course, which most of my rock and roll world, you didn't get paid. But again, it's you're getting photos for your archive. BB King, Arlo Guthrie, so many people that year. But actually, Arlo opened for George Carlin, I think it was that night. But George Carlin, it was awesome. I was backstage. We knew he was going to get arrested. There was a Milwaukee police sergeant that had that look in his eye, and the 7 words you cannot say on radio or TV were in his head. And we kind of knew. So a friend of mine was the stage manager at Summerfest and luckily cleaned out George's pockets before he got arrested. He came off stage and they were going to arrest him right away. And this guy, my friend, said, "Give me a minute with George and we'll bring him out there. Let him change his clothes." Well, he emptied out some things out of his pockets and they took George away. That sergeant and George became great friends in later years. So it was good. George was great. He was one of the smartest comedians around. Smartest musician is Frank Zappa, though. He was like, he was so smart I couldn't believe it.
Well, so as I look at a lot of your pictures, these are really just life is going on, and like you said, you kind of just tried to blend in into the background and capture
Right.
life. Like nobody's posing for you per se.
No.
Did you just what how do you find that magical moment to get just the right photograph?
Hmm. I don't know. Just be part of the background and wait for the spot to do it. It's like at the mile, I was walking down pit lane, 2 weeks ago now, and walking down pit lane to go during qualifying, and they're coming in after qualifying, and I wanted to go down there rather than where they start. And as I'm walking down to where they come back in, here's Bobby Rahal in a stand with a family in a high V booth, I think it was. And I backed up. I took the shot. It was like, well, it's a cute shot, Bobby with a family. I think they were gifted with tickets or seats or whatever. And it was cool. And they actually saw the photo online on Facebook and requested it. I said, here, yeah, thank you. Bobby's got his eyes closed, by the way. I only took one shot. That's why you should always take two.
Yeah. So, in juggling this, after you went out of business with your business, you took a job driving trucks, and then that led into logistics. Were you taking Were you taking your camera with you? I mean, everywhere that you went, and like, did you always have the photo bug, or was this just like when I'm going to a show or when I'm going to the track, or did it just become like your obsession with everywhere you were?
No, it was always there. Not so much a bag, but I always kept a Nikon with me. But after I went bankrupt, a friend got me a job at Comfort Zone Waterbeds. I am a flotation technician. I ran the warehouse for 5 retail stores for a waterbed company. We still got one, and it's the best thing for my back in the world. But I learned how to take care of them and build them, assemble them. One of my best buddies is a BFF forever for sure. Was my partner. So we deliver water beds for the first few years, and then I ran the warehouse. He ran it. The boss would change us around. He was kind of crazy, but that was a good industry. That was fun. So then after that, it became a factory for a hydraulic company. But I always had a camera in the car. It because you never know, cell phone or an icon.
You've won several prestigious awards. The Milwaukee Press Gold Club Award for excellence in sports photography. What's it like to get awards for your photographs like that?
Well, I got two of them, and they're like, really? It was kind of a surprise.
Okay, so you've even had your photos have been featured in like HBO. If I Leave Here Tomorrow,
Oh,
how do you do people call out to you for these kind of opportunities, or are these things that you're kind of always scanning and looking for that opportunity yourself?
it's crazy. So I do a blog every other week, which has been going on for every other Monday for probably 10, 12 years now. So the metadata that I put in that, whether it's Jeff Beck, Milwaukee County Stadium, which is the newest one that I just got recognized for, Warner Brothers contacted me for Foghat, which is right here. And here's my first album cover in 56 years.
That is
And
so cool.
well, it's right out of the blue. But it's a double album and they're both in one sleeve, which is kind of weird. Remember when we got the double album and it folded out? But then 4 photos on the back, and 3 of the 4 are mine. The drummer's the only guy still alive. But metadata is great for a photographer. They find you. So that was found for Record Store Day by Warner Brothers Records. And we just did this movie with a couple photos at Milwaukee County Stadium, 1974, where I had to photograph the stadium totally empty. Everybody was told to get out, and 5 other venues that day for a rock promoter. And it was to figure out the placing of speakers, staging, um, monitors, soundboard, and all that. So that was 1974, and I did a blog on it. What you put behind your photo that you put online is a huge help.
And crazy enough that we talk about online. Let's talk a little bit about some of the evolution of photography. So you started with that Polaroid camera, and you switched to, I would imagine, like 35 millimeter film. And how so you were young, right? So maybe if this happened now and all the changes happened, you would be a little bit harder to adapt to it and a little less wanting to. But you were young and hip and right in the middle of it as all of the changes were coming. So how were you approaching new technology as it started to come, and like what were the kind of the points in your career where technology changed to digital photography, or to whatever the change was that was really a big step?
Ooh, that's a biggie.
Yeah.
Film is coming back, which is very cool. We have a camera store, Mike Ravello's, about a mile away from here, and good buddies, good friends, and they're selling more film now than they have in years. College kids, high school kids are picking up old cameras because, well, they'll take in old cameras. But I started with Polaroid, went to a Petrie 35 millimeter camera, went to Pentax, Minolta, and then Nikon for 50 years. I switched to Sony. Well, the last 4 or 5 years of Nikon were digital. And in low light for rock and roll, they weren't so good. Sony kicked everybody's butt. So I sold all my Nikons. Sony is not cheap. I bought one, then two, then three lenses, and they just rock. They're the best, and I've had them, I think, 5 years now. Sony was the leader of low light sensor technology. And for a while, they were making all the sensors for Nikon, Canon, and everything. And then they started doing their own. But I've become a Sony guy, and they're just awesome. They're rugged, and I beat the heck out of cameras running around a racetrack or rock and roll.
Were you always like first in line, like somebody with a new Apple product to get the new technology that was coming out, or were you hesitant to make the change?
I was very hesitant. I don't think I switched until 2006, and I, the first Nikon I bought that was digital was 12 megapixel, and it was okay. It worked well, but I digital is great, but film is great in the sense that I have 6,000 rolls of film in a closet back there and drawers. I can go get them right now. So all my digital is on 6, 12 terabyte hard drives in the office that, store everything. And I've had one computer crash, and I've learned. So I have an offsite backup, but digital is a little scary in the sense that I photographed Road America 2008, came home, was downloading it into the computer in the days when I downloaded every night. Now I wait for the whole weekend because I got big enough memory cards. But I was downloading like a Friday night of IndyCar from Road America. And as it's going on, the computer does an automatic update. Don't ever do that, people. Bad idea. So it cleared the cards. I lost every image but one. And
Wow.
I had probably 1,000 images on there. So
Wow.
turn off auto update.
Oh, that has to hurt.
Oh, it did.
That has to.
Learn my lesson.
Right. So it did say you're doing like a wedding or a corporate kind of photography. Do you just sort of have like set photos that you're going to do, like, hey, you're going to stand over here and we're going to be kind of in this order, things that you've already kind of found the formula that works, or each of those
Oh
like
yeah,
a animal of their own too? And is it fun
yeah.
doing those?
Yes and no. I did a lot of weddings. They're a lot of work. It's the whole day. I always included the engagement photos, but it's your whole day. And I have a wonderful, beautiful wife, and she became my assistant. So that was really awesome. She would take care of the bride. She would bring thread and needle in case something was needed repaired. She would help me put people in place. But again, the work doing a wedding is crazy. So I know people that charge 10 grand and have 4 photographers. I do it, one guy, but I will only do it for friends anymore. I'm 70. But it's you spend more time even with racing or rock and roll. I spend more time editing than I do shooting because I'm very picky. Um, I want you to have the best shot you can get. Um, I want you to have the best. So if it's for a friend's wedding, it's better because they're going to bond with you. If it's Joe Schmo, yeah, okay, that's fine. But every wedding I've done over 250. Every wedding I do, I think I've done it all. I've seen it all. No, every time there's something else.
So as we talk about technology in photography, and not only going from a film camera to a digital, but how has the social media, and I see that you've really bit onto that really well with your website and doing blog posts and Instagram and Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. What's your approach to social media, and how did that change everything that you were doing?
I like it. It's helped me a lot. It's made me money for the album I showed you, the movie I was talking about, um, and a few other things down the road. But I'm really ticked off at the people that take AI a bit too far. And, they make, especially fashion. Here's your beautiful girl, and she ain't so beautiful. It's all AI. It's gone a little bit too far.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a friend that's a photographer, does swimsuit models. Great photographer, Joey Wright. Look him up. But he even played with it for himself. And he said, make me an AI. I forget what was his term. And it was really funny. He's a great, great swimsuit photographer, but he did one on himself. And it's like, oh my God, he's got like a harpoon and makes him look 20 years younger. But it's so real looking. It's scary.
Well, when you look at a lot of these pictures, and that's we're getting close to doing the fun part where we look at all of your work and discuss it. But when you look at these, a lot of them they seem to tell a story. And I know what I do with video is I try to really lay out an entire story or a journey for when I'm doing an interview with somebody. When you look at these, do you feel like the picture that you're capturing in that moment is a great visual representation that's encompassing a whole story?
Yeah, no. Um, like Milwaukee Mile came back this year, and I think my favorite thing in life is Milwaukee Mile qualifying. It is the best portrait session you could have with a driver. You get them one on one, whereas Road America, you got a bunch, 6 at a time or whatever. On an oval, you get them one at a time, and they haven't been back here for a while. So I get to do my favorite shot, which is them putting a helmet on, putting their gloves on, and all right, we're gonna reverse this camera here just so you can probably see, with a lot of glare. But I love those kind of shots, and but it's cool. You get them one on one at a time, and the overhead cockpit shot is the best.
Recently, you were diagnosed with cancer, I believe, in your kidneys. How did that story go down, and how has that changed your outlook?
It's kind of crazy. So, everyone, get your yearly checkup. I felt fine. I didn't know anything. Um, it came up in a yearly checkup, urine sample. They found microscopic blood in my pee. This would be 2 years ago, which led them to do a scan, which found a tumor in my right kidney, which they went in to look at, which they aborted because the kidney itself was full of cancer cells. So they then pulled the kidney out, removed the kidney, and did a cystoscopy, which is not a fun procedure because they don't put you out. And then everything was actually okay for a while. And now it's back. So it's in my left kidney, my bladder, and in my left, what do they call it? Urethra. So it's going from my kidney on down on the left side. So this coming Wednesday, they're going to put a tube in my back going to my kidney called an F tube, let that heal for a month, and then I get an infusion of BCG, it's called, and let it sit in there for an hour or two, and hopefully once a week for 6 weeks, that kicks its ass, and we get rid of it.
You hear a lot of people when they get a diagnosis or that kind of news hits them, it changes their outlook in life. Did it change any of how your relationships were or how you approached even everyday life with your family and friends?
No, not really. Mostly because I felt well. Um, it was like nothing. Nothing happened, but it. So I never felt sick or anything. But you got to keep an eye on your body, bro.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yep. Did we talked a little bit about the teacher that you had in high school who really to this day kind of really taught you a lot. Did you ever have anybody throughout your career that you kind of took under your wing and gave back to and they're probably telling the same story about you?
His son, who is very cool. I think I
How
mentioned
how
earlier, I
perfect
sold
is
him
that?
a tent,
How perfect is that for an answer? You go.
right? Yeah. His son is cool, and I'm sure his dad got him into photography more than me, but yeah, that's cool.
Is there anything that you would have changed as far as the photography aspect of your career at any step of the way that got you all the way to where you are now?
Yeah, I would have yelled at my dad. Um, that year, the Midwest Rock Festival came here, and Led Zeppelin, Jeff Beck, Cream, a couple other bands were playing down the road at Milwaukee County Stadium, and he wouldn't let me go. So, still mad at him for that. Gonna have a talking to, Dad.
All right. So I'm excited to jump into this part of the of our interview here, where we're going to put some of your photos up here, some of the epic ones that you've sent to me, and you can tell a little bit of the story behind how they came to be. And I still, If you think about going to all of these places, it's unfolding constantly, just like I'm moving right now, like video, and you're taking that 1 second in time and just condensing that one brief, fleeting second to be the entire picture. So let's pop these up here and see.
That's why I like photography as, a still shot.
But
First shot was Robert Palmer, and that was a color shot. And we made the guitar, or I made the guitar color and made the rest of the photo black and white.
and what do we got here?
Cheap Trick, like those boys. They were like our house band in Milwaukee. They're from Rockford. Good guys.
It seems like you're right up in the front row. Is this just right up in front of everybody?
Yep, they're getting old. Great guys. But the trick with Cheap Trick, oh, there you go. That shot. The hammer guitar with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 necks. What's his name? He won't use that guitar until the last song because it weighs 300 frickin' pounds. But again, you're limited these days to 3 songs you're in, 3 songs you're escorted out. So, being the sneaky FBI photographer I am, okay, I'm escorted out. That's at Summerfest, I believe. So I went out. I had a beer in my truck. Went to, after I came back in, get searched again. And I even had a magnesium pill in my pocket, set off the metal detector. So you come back through, take off your watch, all your stuff, get checked again. But I wanted that shot. And he waits till the end. He doesn't play it long. But so I went up in the back and did the shot, came back in, did the shot. And Rick Nielsen's great. Great guy. Oh, John Prine. Summerfest at the Schlitz Stage, 1974. Ah, God. First buddy I lost to COVID.
Yeah.
And I've lost 33 between racers and rock and roll. But there's a couple others of John Prine at the stage at Summerfest. He's looking up at a chairlift, and there's somebody up in the chairlift smoking a joint, and he's like, "Hey!" But John Prine liked smoke. I think he's got a song. Actually, I heard it the other day about a 8 mile long cigarette because of his throat cancer, or I forget what it was. He couldn't smoke anymore, so he'd go out backstage with his crew and smell the fumes. But he wrote a song about an 8 mile long cigarette in heaven.
Yeah, about when he passes away, that's what he's going to do. Probably one of my favorite singer songwriter all time, John Prine.
He was great. He was, again, like talking to you and me or Jeff Beck. He was just a sweetheart. He was a great guy. And first guy I lost to COVID,
All right,
Joe Walsh. That's James Gang, Joe Walsh, Neil Young, 72. Neil Young, 72. His jeans, there's Joe again. Neil Young's jeans. Oh, there's the Schlitz or the Pabst photo. Lars Ulrich of Metallica. Metallica have become friends. Al Cooper. We wouldn't have Leonard Skinner, Blood, Sweat, and Tears without him. Elvin Bishop, good man. That's Jethro Tull. That's 71. It's one of the first bands I shot was Jethro Tull.
Did you get to hang out and party with these people too, or really you just kind of stayed in the background and?
Yes and no. Bowie, yes. Jethro Tull, yes. Yeah. And that was in a basement club. Luther Allison was awesome. As was the club. It was called Humpin' Hannah's, and it was downstairs of a bar. That photo of Bowie almost became a biggie. It was going to go on Life magazine, but they didn't do it because his legs were spread.
Yeah.
and a little bit too much for that day. So that's Clarence White, the guitar I was talking about. That's the B bender. Notice how thick it is?
Yes.
So that's basically two Telecasters. And the stickers on it, on the top right, is a Nudie Cohen sticker. Nudie Cohen did all the rhinestone suits for Porter Wagner, any country star, all the Grant Parsons, all this stuff down the side.
Is this the Carlin show?
Yep, right before he got arrested. B.B. King, Leo Kottke. So that's 72 or 3 at the Performing Arts Center, shooting through. There's mirror after mirror. There's a mirror in front, one behind me. So it's one of my favorite photos. And we actually tried to duplicate it, which we did in 2016. And Leo was so great. He tried to set it up perfectly in the same room. An incredible musician, too. He can play a 12 string like nobody. Oh, there you go. There's the other shot. That's what that dressing room looks like now. A character. Frank Zappa. Look at the shoes and the tile. His
Yeah.
manager had a cigarette lit for him before he finished the cigarette he was smoking. We did an interview with him while Mahavishnu Orchestra was opening for him. He is a smart SOB. He's political, but he's not too political. But he's really, really smart musically and just worldly. He's miss him. He was a good guy, buddy guy. This was the first time I photographed him. There's Roger McGuinn. This is my favorite photo of all time, other than Bowie. So there were 20 beer cans in a pyramid on that bench. And Linda Ronstadt comes up to Ramblin' Jack Elliott. I'm over behind him. Chris Christopherson, Richie Havens, Earl Scruggs are over there. And Linda gently kicks over the beer cans, Budweiser beer cans, I think, and they're all on the floor. And she warms up playing to Ramblin' Jack Elliott and me, and I'm 17. I fell in love. I think Ramblin' Jack did too. So this photo is the Rolling Stones in 72. Um, the dragon is painted on that stage. Mick Taylor playing guitar, Nicky Hopkins on piano, but there are lights behind them shooting up to mirrors that then bounce the light onto the guys. That's 72. That's technology in its early days. Oh, that's John McLaughlin and Jimmy Herring. That was in Chicago a few years ago. John McLaughlin is a great guitar player. Metallica again. Those cubes Metallica had are just something. They would come down, move around, and there they are again. Have lights pop out of them, do all kinds of crap. So those are all, well, not all, but a bunch of my publications I've done and album covers. Well, except the Babe Ruth one. That's a double album that opens up. So I didn't get the cover, didn't get the back cover, but I got the insides, and both albums pull out, and there's 25 pictures in it of mine. So I had to buy that album. The Foghat album I got paid $1,100 for, and they just used the cover shot and 3 in the back. Well, there's the Babe Ruth album. So those are all my photos. And they
Holy
just
cow. And you
took
didn't
them.
even get a free darn album. That is crazy.
No, nope. Had to buy it. So I tried to do different things with racing. A thumbs up, Alex and Artie here. Just mix it up a little bit. Danica with her long hair. Not my favorite racer. I knew her family. I know her family very well, and she was great. Oh, you know Ralph Hansen there. That's the back of his head. And I didn't know that until last year. Ralph is behind Paul Newman.
I really dig these action shots with the water on the track.
I love them, except now, like here, I'm in a corner worker stage or spot, and they used to be nice. They've changed them all. So you had a picnic table, you had a roof, and I'm, that far away with a 400 millimeter lens, but and a towel around the camera. But they're gone now, so drivers can see, which I get. They've made them smaller. Nah, there's crazy people right there. Young, fearless, and crazy. First and second saying hi to each other and congrats there. And I think I have second and third next shot. But they're nuts. And they'll go down, this is turn like 2 at Road America, and they're coming down a hill and they'll do a wheelie, not on purpose, there, just to gain a little extra speed. Well, yeah, there, look at that. My man, Scott Dixon. He's my buddy. I like him a lot. That photo you can actually buy on canvas at Road America's Paddock Shop, or for me, for a lot less. Thank you. And that one also. That's the start of IndyCar 2 years ago, turn 5. Oh, the world famous Eagle. That belonged to a friend that just passed away. And he had a garage full of beautiful cars, and I don't know where they're going, but he had, oh, geez, 20 million worth of beautiful cars.
Wow.
And I photographed that one and a few others. That photo is actually 5 foot long and 24-inch wide. No, other way around. But it's big. I have a good buddy that's got a huge printer, thankfully. Well, there's a few backstage photos, passes from Summerfest. That's in my workshop downstairs. And they're all over. They're in the garage, here and there. Got to put them somewhere. So there's the Bugle American. That's what got me into rock and roll.
Come around
Other
full
than
circle.
Yeah. But I really didn't have any friends in high school when we moved. So I got into rock and roll and liked my cameras and went into a newspaper called the Bugle American. And if it wouldn't have been for them, I wouldn't be talking to you.
Is it a pretty cool camaraderie with all of the photographers and you guys are probably kind of group up together, but have you made a lot of really great long-term friends through that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I did my first Indy 500 this year ever, and bonded with a couple people I haven't seen other than Road America and the Mile, and yeah, it was cool.
Final thoughts. Is there anything that you never got to do throughout your career? That somebody that you wanted to, or an event that's still kind of on the list of things that you need to check off?
Oh gosh, I got this close to doing the Chick Korea tour, and I wanted to do that, and somebody else got it. To be a tour photographer or a racing photographer for a team. That's, like Pato Award and McLaren, they have their team photographer, and that'd be cool. But it's all who you know, not so much what you can do.
Your career has been so cool. And if you had approached a high school age Dan Williams, I would have wanted to go exactly down the path that you went, actually, because like I say, I was very into photography at that time. So I enjoyed talking about the changes that have come and the advancements in photography, and sharing all of these epic moments that you've captured with me. And I really appreciate everything and you taking some time out to share with me. Is there anything that I did not ask that you thought for sure he's going to ask?
Nobody. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. You have a great day.